The Sports Connection. Sponsored by WBKO. Is the spirit inside you?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Connection. I'm Andrew Dawson, and joining me today, the host of Inside Hilltopper Sports, Brandon Phillips. Brandon, thanks for being here.
Appreciate you having me, Andrew.
Appreciate you stepping in and pinch hitting for Doug this week. And, you know, we've been talking all year really about high school sports and how the season's flying by, and now we're right into the heart of playoffs for soccer, volleyball, and soon enough it's going to be football playoff time.
Well, it's certainly an exciting time, and of course we're always anticipating and very excited about the fall sports to start. And then before you know it, they're already gone. As you said, soccer is well into region play as well as volleyball. Football, just a few weeks left. This week's a key week as the district finals and district seeding will be determined. And of course we have a guest today who's got a big interest in that.
Right, you know, we look at football, and like we said, the season's winding down, and you know, first time on the show this year. What are some teams that you've seen this year that have really surprised you that maybe you didn't think were going to be as good as they were this year?
Well, you know, I think there's been a lot of surprise, some in this area and some on the perimeter. We talked a little bit about it on the radio show this week, but Butler County, for one, is having a really good season. Ohio County in 5A, of course, we think about Bowling Green and John Hardin and Christian County, but Ohio County has been a team that's really doing some things at the 5A level. And when you look at some of your traditional powers, I think they've stepped it up a notch. I think Warren Central was a team that lost a tremendous amount on offense and defense last year. They've picked right up where they left off at the end of last season. And of course, Bowling Green is just such a traditional power around here. And this year they've been able to carry on that undefeated season, which they've not been able to do in the last few years, including a big win over St. X.
I know you and Doug are out every Friday night at the various different high school games. There's a good chance, you know, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but when state rolls around, that there could be a number of teams from this area that are playing at Houchin Smith Stadium.
Yeah, and that seems to be the trend in the last couple of years. The western half of the state advances very late into these playoffs and always has a good opportunity to represent this part of the state in the state championships. I think the thing that's really exciting this year, particularly when you look at 5A, was you always had kind of a powerhouse in Highlands hanging out at the end there for you. They've moved down now to the 4A level, which I'm sure excites some of the 4A coaches. But when you think about teams like Bowling Green and Warren Central and on up to John Hardin and Christian County, they have to really think, you know, if we can get to that game, now we have a real shot at bringing home a state title, which is always exciting.
Have you seen a team this year that when you've watched them play that you just think, you know, heads and tails better than some of the other teams, maybe a class above this year?
Well, you know, we keep going back to it, but I think Bowling Green is certainly like that this year. They are in most years. And the Warren Central matchup, which everybody was so excited about last week, and of course Bowling Green wins that game 21-0. And I think what you realized is, and I think you used the appropriate word, they are a notch better than some of the best competition. And I think Warren Central, who at that time was ranked third in the state, certainly feels they could possibly get the Purples the next time around in the playoffs. But the way Bowling Green is playing right now, the way they're executing offensively and defensively, and when you look at the senior leadership of Scooter Hollis, Joe Manley, Hunter Navarez, they're really clicking right now. And I think, you know, is heads and, well, I won't say heads and heels, but certainly a notch better than their closest opponent.
You know, we talked a lot about that game, but just big games in general in the regular season. What do you think teams take away from a big game like that where, you know, maybe you lose a big game like that, and not just the Bowling Green Warren Central game, but there have been other big matchups in the regular season. But, you know, what do you think the losing team can take away from that? Is that something where you would think they look at it and say, if we get a chance to meet them in playoffs, so that's when it's really going to matter?
Well, a lot of big games. I mean, you look at Franklin Simpson, Warren East in that district. Allen County's got a big matchup with Franklin Simpson this week at the 4A level. It's tough. And I think the Bowling Green Central game was interesting because there was so much hype because of the two teams that were involved, because of their rankings at the time. And it's just different strategies for different coaches. If your team wins that game, you've got to remain humble and understand it's just a regular season game. And conversely, if your team loses that game, you still have a tremendous amount to play for. The only difference is you might have to go on the road a little bit to do it now. But certainly, you know, in all of these instances, whether it's Warren East, Franklin Simpson, Bowling Green Central, I don't think the team that came out on the short end of those games feel they can't come back and win that in the playoffs.
You know, it's always fun to talk about the playoffs. And you know, in football, they're not even here yet. We've got sports where the playoffs are going on right now. Soccer, volleyball, especially, you know, in soccer, you know, we talked about in football there could be some teams playing for state titles, but the same, I think, holds true for soccer this year. I mean, Greenwood, Bowling Green in this area are two teams boys and girls that both every year are always there, and this year it's really no different.
Yeah, certainly, and obviously we had the region final on the girls' side between Bowling Green and Greenwood. Bowling Green comes out on top there 1-0. The thing that is really interesting to me is when you start looking at some of the different elements that come into play late into the season for these outdoor sports, because certainly that was a game that was played, I think, 30-degree weather, cold, wind, rain, and it really changes the dynamic of those games and can have an impact. And you see a very low-scoring contest, which wasn't necessarily something that you would be surprised in good conditions with teams that are that good defensively. But Bowling Green's able to come out 1-0 and certainly had to battle the elements to do that.
Right, well, we've been talking about that game in girls high school soccer, and let's take you. The regional championships were held last week, and as we said, it was a showdown between the Greenwood Gators and the Bowling Green Purples, a matchup that saw the Gators win 4-2 during the regular season. Let's take you right to the highlights. You see the wind blowing on the flag right there, and I can tell you, being there, it was quite cold and windy. 11th minute scoring chance for Bowling Green. Shea Sanson gets a good look, but Marina Parker's there for the save. It remains scoreless. 39th minute, Rachel Veach looking for an assist, but Keely Vincent makes the stop. There's going to be no score at the half. 52nd minute now. Lady Purples again on the attack. Sydney Pruitt up ahead. Bowling Green Lauren Sims with the shot, but again Parker's there to keep it 0-0. But here it is, 71st minute, still no score. Well, there is a shot. I stand corrected. Another save. This is a big save by Keely Vincent late in the second period. But here it was in the 71st minute. There is still no score. Ellie Young, the pass to Veach, who nearly scores. This is going to be Allie Hanks for Bowling Green. I stand corrected again. She gets the winner in golden goal in overtime. Bowling Green wins the regional championship 1-0. As you said, it was a great game, and we just saw the highlights. I mean, and I was there, and I can tell you that weather, it was freezing cold. Maybe the worst condition to watch a soccer game, but watching the game, it helped not think about the weather because it was such a good game.
Yeah, and we were talking about sitting in for Doug Thompson today, and Doug is kind of an old school guy, and he doesn't really whine too much about the weather, but I guess I'm more of the modern athlete, and I think it just makes such a difference on how these games are, and a lot is made on the football side about teams that are a certain style of play, whether you're a quick tempo spread offense that throws the ball a lot. Well, how does that impact you when you get late into the season compared to, say, running teams like a Warren Central? But certainly, I commend you for braving the elements out there because it was not easy on anyone. And you saw that from the goalies. They were pretty suited up trying to stay warm in the weather.
Yeah, I think after about 10 minutes into the first half, my hand that was holding the camera was about frozen. I kept on having to sneak it in my pocket or something. But you know what? Thankfully, out there at Greenwood, they had plenty of hot chocolate and stuff for us, media folks and the fans to watch. It was a great event. And as we said, I mean, it's just been a great season, not just football, soccer, volleyball, just all the sports so far this year in the area.
Yeah, and we said it earlier. It's just crazy to think how fast these sports go, and I'm sure it's the same for the athletes. You spend all of this time in the off-season training, getting ready, and before you know it, your season's over. So.
Right. Well, right now it's time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll chat with Warren East head football coach Ben Bruni. Stay tuned. There's more of the Sports Connection on the way.